Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate, an exclusive interview with the Foreign Minister on India's key relationships with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Foreign Minister, let's start with Afghanistan. Both the Associated Press and the Washington Post believe that the attack on Indians in Kabul on the 26th of February was the work of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. As Foreign Minister, are you convinced of the same?
We have absolutely no evidence otherwise. I think it has been the handiwork of those forces who are out to see that the relationship between India and Afghanistan is jeopardized.
Now, after initially expressing his doubts, Richard Holbrooke has accepted that Indians were targets. But has the United States government accepted that this was the work of the LET?
Well, I'm very happy that Mr. Richard Holbrooke has come out with a contradiction about the earlier statement that he had made. I think it is for everyone to see that the network that you find operating from the soil of Pakistan, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the other terrorist outfits, I think they are fused both ideologically and operationally.
And America has accepted this?
And certainly United States, being a close observer of these developments, both in India and Pakistan and in Afghanistan. Because they have so much
accepted it, sir?
They have so much at stake in Afghanistan.
Have they accepted that this time around the work was that of the LET?
Well, they cannot come to any other conclusion other than to accept that it was the handiwork of these terrorist organizations.
Did the government have any advance warning that the LET or the Hikmatyar and Haqqani groups at the instigation of the ISI were targeting Indian assets in Kabul?
Well, there have been earlier attacks on our mission in Kabul.
Linked directly to Haqqani and Hikmatyar. So did you have advance warning?
There have been earlier attacks, and then these attacks were, at one point of time, it was conveyed to us by the government of Afghanistan that they were carried out by forces from outside of Afghanistan. So this latest attack also, in which 7 of the Indians who had gone there on humanitarian work
were killed. But the reason I ask is this: the press has suggested that in fact there was a meeting of the National Security Council on the 12th of February where apparently you were present when R&AW warned the government that Indian targets in Kabul were vulnerable and under threat from the LET. Did the government have warnings that perhaps it didn't heed?
Well, we generally had that warning, that our missions and our volunteers who have gone there on humanitarian work are going to be under attack, because what India has been doing in Afghanistan is the visible symbol of what India intends to do in building up Afghanistan.
That I accept. So if you generally had warnings, why were we caught unprepared?
Well, I think the nature of the work on which the Indians have gone there is such that we cannot harm them,
In other words, there's not much we can do to protect because we're vulnerable because of the work they do.
Well, you could put it that way also. But I would rather put it this way, that the Indians who have gone there in Afghanistan on humanitarian purposes, they are unarmed. So naturally they become easy targets, soft targets.
In that case, let me put this to you. There's no doubt that the Indian embassy and Indian consulates have to remain in Afghanistan. But has the time come for us to consider withdrawing or reducing the 4,000 civilian Indians involved in reconstruction, education and training?
Well, I think we have been assured by the government of Afghanistan that they will be able to protect the Indian personnel who have gone there
But is that a
on the call of duty.
But is that a meaningful assurance you can rely on? They failed at least 3 times in the last 18 months to protect the embassy or individuals. They could easily fail again to protect us.
Well, apart from what the Afghanistan government is doing, you know, I think we will have to take some additional measures ourselves.
Such as what, can I ask? What are the measures you plan?
No, well, these things cannot be spelled out. But we will have to be on our guards, and we will have to realize the tremendous risks that are involved when we are on a humanitarian mission like the one that we have in Afghanistan.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that Indians in Kabul face tremendous risks. But these are risks that have to be faced because India's interests require a presence in Afghanistan, and therefore if there is a danger, that's a danger that has to be accepted.
Well, wherever such missions go, naturally they are always the targets of attack.
The press has been informed by Home Ministry sources that the Indian government is considering sending an advisory to Indians in Kabul about their security situation. In contrast, your spokesman, speaking to the Hindu, has explicitly and expressly denied this. Is there a difference of opinion between your ministry, the MEA, and the Home Ministry over this issue?
I do not think so. I think any suggestion to that effect has to be denied with all the vehemence at once.
So the government is of one thinking?
There is total convergence of opinion and assessment of the situation between the Home Ministry and the Ministry of External Affairs. We always exchange notes with each other.
Let's broaden the discussion. Many analysts believe that AFPAC has put at risk the dynamics of India's relationship with Afghanistan and Pakistan to India's disadvantage. To begin with, as American pressure on Taliban and Al-Qaeda increases, they or their allies will seek to deflect attention by either carrying out terror strikes within India or by targeting Indian soft targets in Kabul. And in a sense, that's already happened with Pune and with what happened in Kabul on the 26th of February. Does this worry you?
It certainly causes grave concern to the Indian administration. That means that we will have to be prepared for all such eventualities. You know. We will have to be extra cautious in terms of protecting our nationals wherever they are, you know, and in particularly in Afghanistan.
The corollary to this is that in the short term at least, AFPAC could make India more vulnerable rather than less vulnerable.
Well, I am inclined to agree that we are a target, all right, you know, and we will continue to be a target. You know.
A second fear or concern that analysts have is because President Obama's AFPAC depends critically on Pakistani support and cooperation, he might become vulnerable to Pakistani pressure to try and reduce India's presence in Afghanistan. Does that worry you?
Well, we have in our interactions with the US administration at various levels, we have not got the impression that the United States is trying to convey directly or indirectly to the Indian government that our presence in Afghanistan should be minimized, you know. That is not my impression.
America remains completely supportive of the role India plays.
Well, I'm sure that America is appreciative of the role that India is playing in Afghanistan, as much as the people of Afghanistan themselves are appreciative of the role that India is playing in Afghanistan.
Thirdly, as President Karzai looks for reconcilable elements of the Taliban to make peace with, a policy about which India has reservations to say the least, Pakistan's importance and leverage could grow exponentially, both as a gateway as well as someone who helps identify and bring these Taliban on board. Again, does it worry you?
Well, the recent conference in London on Afghanistan, convened by the British Prime Minister, has drawn certain red lines, you know. And those red lines are that any effort in Afghanistan, it should be Afghan-led, and It should confine to the constitution of Afghanistan, and it should also have there should not be any direct linkage between those organizations which are preaching terror and which are perpetuating terror in Afghanistan.
The problem with those red lines is that the second Afghanistan begins to look for reconcilable elements of Taliban, Pakistan's role in identifying and bringing them on board grows. Does that worry you? Because Pakistan is looking to increase its role at the cost of India.
Well, I wouldn't put it exactly that way, that it is at the cost of India. Well, the London conference, these questions came up. And then we took the line that those who believe that in Afghanistan, that the constitution and the rule of law and that disassociation with all terrorist organizations, if somebody, it could be individuals or it could be organizations, if they give up violence and if they give up their allegiance to these terrorist organizations, then, and if they accept the constitution of Afghanistan, then I think they should be, integrated into the mainstream of Afghanistan.
Let me put it like this. On Thursday in Islamabad, President Karzai referred to India as a close friend, but he said Pakistan was a twin brother. In fact, he went further, he called Pakistan a conjoined twin. Doesn't that suggest that the relationship is already changing?
Well, President Karzai has considered that India is a friend.
But Pakistan's a twin.
Well, it is a question of gradation of the relationship.
But then we have graded below Pakistan.
In President Karzai's assessment, I think that is the scheme of things. You know.
That doesn't worry us.
Well, we take note of that. You know.
The press is speculating, as you know, that whilst Pakistan's influence is growing, India is either left out of the loop or is being squeezed out.
I do not think that India has been squeezed out. I think India is playing a stellar role in rebuilding Afghanistan, which has been acknowledged by the people of Afghanistan and by the legitimate government of Afghanistan, and that's what matters.
Foreign Minister, let's take a break there. When I come back, I want to talk to you about Pakistan. That's in a moment's time. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate with the Foreign Minister. Let's talk about Pakistan. On the 13th, the Home Minister said, nothing has come out of the recent Foreign Secretary level talks. As Foreign Minister, do you agree with him?
Well, let me put it this way, that nothing dramatic was expected between in the meeting between the two foreign secretaries. We invited the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan to come to India so that we can start the talks, so that we could know what Pakistan's position is.
So you had no expectations, therefore you weren't disappointed by the outcome either?
Certainly not. I was not disappointed, you know, because I didn't expect much from that meeting, and it was only an icebreaker, you know. So
An
it was a situation. It was a situation where we were trying to size up what Pakistan's present thinking is. And then I think we succeeded in assessing that Pakistan's
So from that
thinking.
point of view, to the extent you succeeded in assessing Pakistan's thinking, it was actually successful.
I think it is a plus point.
It is a plus point. So there's no disappointment, but there is a plus point in a sense that you have understood Pakistan a little better. On the 13th, the Home Minister also has said that India believes that at least one serving Pakistani army officer, a certain Major Samir Ali, and another retired officer, a Major Abdur Rahman, were in the control room in Pakistan giving instructions to the 2611 attackers. Does India now have proof of Pakistani state involvement in 2611?
Well, if the Home Minister has made a statement of this kind, I am sure that he would be having enough evidence to substantiate that.
Do you know of this evidence?
I have also heard and I have also read what the Home Minister has said. And then we have provided dossiers to the Pakistan government.
Is this evidence in that dossier?
Well, I do not know. I am not aware whether the dossier would have contained what the Home Minister, the distinguished Home Minister, has said.
Have we made our close allies in the West, Britain and America, aware that we have evidence of Pakistani state involvement?
Well, in our own way, we convey it to our friendly countries,
What was their response? Because this is a very serious level now. It's no longer non-state actors. It's a member of the Pakistan Army, a serving member. What was their response?
Well, what was the reaction of United States or United Kingdom, or for that matter, any other third country, for what we have brought to their notice? I think it is something between ourselves. So I don't think it could be revealed public domain.
But are you satisfied with the response, or are you a bit worried?
Well, we are satisfied that we have been able to bring this to the notice of the friendly governments like United States.
But not necessarily satisfied with their response to it thereafter.
Well, I didn't say that.
Let's come to David Donovan Headley, who's in the news. Now that he's decided to plead guilty and he's likely to get a lesser sentence, are you beginning to suspect that he could be an American double agent who turned rogue?
Well, we are closely watching what Headley will be saying, or what Headley would be committing himself to,
and then you'll make up your
in a
mind.
court of law. Perhaps then only we could come to some conclusion.
Has America been upfront and transparent, or do you have a feeling that they've withheld details and information about Headley because they want to either protect what he knows or protect institutions like the FBI and CIA?
Well, we are totally cooperating with the United States, and they are reciprocating in ample measure to fight terrorism.
Does that mean that they're upfront and honest about Headley?
I think it goes without saying.
You have no reservations about that?
No, I have no reservations.
It emerges that Headley was on the FBI radar for at least a year before he was arrested, which means that for a whole month before 26/11, he was under American surveillance. And yet, just 5 months later, in April 2009, the Americans allowed him to come to India without informing the Indian government. Have you taken that issue up with them?
Well, we have taken up all relevant issues with reference to Headley, all references.
Including the fact that he visited India and they didn't inform you he was doing so even though he was under their surveillance?
Whatever has come to the knowledge of Government of India through our media or through what we hear from others, we have conveyed it to United States.
And have you got responses that satisfy you, or are you still in need of greater information?
Well, I have said it earlier that United States is fighting the war, the terror. We are on the same page as far as fighting terror is concerned.
Has India asked the United States for access to Headley?
Well, we have asked for certain reports after they finish with their interrogation, after they finish investigating into the Headley, because it is the United States government which has moved against
that
Headley.
I understand. Those are
So
reports after they finish.
We are awaiting the report that we...
But you haven't sought access to Headley himself as yet?
Well, it all depends upon the kind of report that we get.
So you're awaiting the reports before you make up your mind? Minister, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.